Every community has a history it calls its own, and landmarks that embody that history in special ways. For the mining town of Superior, Arizona, local history has long centered on the Magma Copper Company, organized at Superior in 1910 to mine copper in the adjacent mountains. 12 years later, when the long-term potential of the Magma mine was recognized, the company broke ground for a copper smelter. Operating its own smelter would save Magma the expense of shipping ore elsewhere for smelting. Construction of the smelter took 16 months, from December 1922 until March 1924. It was a complicated, expensive project, but Magma undertook it with confidence that its mine would quickly repay the investment. Magma viewed the project as a source of pride, both for the company and for the community of Superior. A professional photographer was hired to document the project on the first day of each month, using an innovative rotating camera to take wide panoramic views of the construction site. The Magma smelter processed its first batch of ore in March 1924 and operated almost continuously until its last run in July 1971. During its 47 years of operation, it was the most prominent feature on the Superior landscape and an enduring reminder of the town's connection to the copper industry. After the smelter closed, Magma continued to operate its mine and mill at Superior into the 1990s, shipping the ore to a smelter at the Magma mine in San Manuel, Arizona. In 1995, Magma was bought by another large mining company, BHP, which briefly operated the Superior mine until it ceased operation in 1996. In 2004, a newly discovered copper deposit near Superior led to the creation of Resolution Copper Mining LLC, a new mining company owned by Rio Tinto and BHP with a long-term plan to carry out environmental reclamation of the old Magma property and to develop the new deposit. Through all of the changes, the Magma smelter at Superior stood mostly unused, but it remained a powerful symbol of the town's mining heritage. The most prominent part of the smelter complex was the 300-foot-high chimney known to Superiorites as the Stack. It was a landmark visible from anywhere in the town, and it was easily spotted from miles away. Copper put Superior on the map, but it was silver that first drew miners to the Pinal Mountains. Silver was first discovered in 1870, a few miles north of the future town site of Superior, at a spot just below the King's Crown Peak. In 1875, the discovery became the Silver King Mine, and other silver mines quickly opened on adjacent ground. A busy town named Silver King grew up around the original discovery. The success of the Silver King and other silver mines also led to the creation of Pinal City, a town on Queen Creek near the foot of Picket Post Mountain. The ore from the Silver King mine was hauled by wagons and mule teams to Pinal City, where a stamp mill was built to process the ore. The Silver King mine and the town of Silver King flourished until the late 1880s, when the price of silver dropped dramatically. The mine soon closed, along with most of the other silver mines in the Pioneer District. The town of Silver King was largely abandoned. Pinal City hung on a little longer, but by the turn of the 20th century, it too was mostly abandoned. The silver boom, promising as it seemed in the 1880s, was over by 1900. In 1902, a new town site was platted along Queen Creek near the base of Apache Leap. It was named Superior after the Lake Superior and Arizona Mining Company, one of the large copper mining businesses that opened mines in the area. During its first 8 years, Superior grew slowly but steadily as people moved to the area to work in the copper mines that were opening nearby. Things began to change more quickly in Superior in 1910. That year, William Boyce Thompson, a mining investor from Montana, decided to buy the Silver Queen mine. The Silver Queen was just upslope from Superior and had been part of the early silver boom, but it had ceased to be a profitable mine in the 1890s. Nevertheless, Thompson and his engineers were confident it would be a steady producer of copper. When Thompson bought the Silver Queen, he changed its name to Magma and founded the Magma Copper Company. The headquarters of the new company would be in New York City, but Magma would focus exclusively on its mine at Superior. Thompson first came up with the idea of building a smelter at Superior while he was on a diplomatic mission to Russia in 1917. World War I was raging. The Russian Revolution had reached a pivotal moment, and Thompson and his team were busy trying to promote American interest. Despite the dramatic circumstances, Thompson was also thinking about how to make the most of his mining operation thousands of miles away at Superior. He declared to Raymond Robbins, a fellow diplomat and mining man on the mission, "If the Magma is what I think she is, I'm going to put up the finest smelter in the world there. Not the greatest, mind you, but the finest." Building a state-of-the-art smelter at Superior was just one part of a major expansion of the Magma mine envisioned by Thompson. From 1922 to 1924, while the smelter was under construction, Magma also greatly expanded its concentration mill at Superior and upgraded its railroad from narrow gauge to standard gauge. Together, the project cost Magma more than $4 million, a huge sum at the time. Soon after the work was completed, Magma's production of copper tripled and the Magma workforce increased to almost 700 men. True to Thompson's pledge to build the finest smelter in the world at Superior, Magma hired some of the most prominent names in the construction business for the project. The smelter was designed by Bradley, Bruff, and Labart, an engineering firm based in San Francisco that specialized in the design of mining operations around the West. The firm's youngest partner, Jules Labart, was an expert in smelter design and was chiefly responsible for the design of the Magma project. For the earth moving and site preparation, Magma hired Toohey Brothers of Portland, Oregon, the same firm that was already busy upgrading the narrow gauge Magma Railroad. For the massive structural steel of the various smelter buildings, Magma contracted with the Kansas City Structural Steel Company of Kansas City, Missouri. And for the 300-foot high stack, Magma turned to the Alphonse Castores Chimney Construction Company of Chicago. The Castores Company, founded in Germany in the 1870s, had already built hundreds of similar brick chimneys at industrial plants around the world. The Castores design required bricks that were custom made for each chimney, depending on its height, diameter, and requirements for heat resistance. For the stack at Superior, the bricks were made at a brick plant built by Magma next to the smelter site. The same plant also produced conventional bricks for many of the buildings in the smelter complex, and for a large winter home built by Thompson at Picket Post Mountain. In 1914, 10 years before the smelter opened, the Magma Copper Company built a railroad to connect its mine with the Arizona Eastern Railroad at Florence, 30 miles away. The original narrow-gauge Magma Arizona Railroad was a substantial improvement on the mule-drawn wagons that preceded it, but its capacity was limited. In 1922, the same year that Magma rebuilt its mill and began construction of the smelter, it also upgraded the Magma Arizona from narrow to standard gauge. The upgrade not only increased how much ore the Magma trains could carry, it also eliminated many of the tight curves of the narrow gauge line, which made it possible for the railroad to bring in the oversized structural steel needed for the largest smelter buildings. During its first 55 years, the Magma Arizona Railroad used steam locomotives exclusively. It was one of the last commercial railroads in the United States to use steam power, and the change to diesel locomotives was not made until 1968. The old steam locomotives, which were featured in several Hollywood movies, were sold as museum pieces or for use in park settings. The diesel engines of the Magma Arizona continued to haul copper ingots to the Arizona Eastern until 1971, when the smelter closed. After that, the railroad hauled milled ore from Superior to the Magma smelter at San Manuel, 60 miles away. Of the many processes carried out at the Magma Smelter, perhaps the most memorable was the conversion process. It was the final stage in smelting, when the molten copper from the reverberatory furnace was placed in large steel vats called converters, then blasted for hours with oxygen to burn off the remaining impurities. The resulting copper, which was 98 to 99% pure, was poured into a casting machine to make uniform slabs called ingots or bullion. The ingots, each weighing about 300 pounds and cooled by sprayed water, dropped from the casting machine onto the loading dock at the far end of the converter building. The ingots were then carted by hand trucks onto a waiting rail car. Soon after the smelter was put in operation, Superior High School began playing its football and baseball games on the field right next to the smelter, just north of Harding Elementary School. The field was on Magma property, just south of the converter building and the stack. It was a bare-bones facility, slightly off-level, without grass and without a grandstand or bleachers. But the high school football and baseball teams were the pride of Superior, and most local people considered the shortcomings of the field an important advantage for the home team. In the 1980s, a decade or so after the smelter closed, many of its largest steel frame structures were taken down and the steel was sold as scrap. Most of the machinery of the smelter was removed and sold or taken to be used elsewhere. But a group of large buildings clustered near the base of the stack was left standing for several more decades. The largest was the powerhouse, where the waste heat from the smelter was used to generate electricity. The powerhouse also held the machinery that produced the compressed air used in smelter operations. Other large buildings left standing included the machine shop, where smelter parts were fabricated and machinery repaired. The warehouse, where equipment and supplies for the smelter were stored, and the engine house, where the locomotives of the Magma Arizona Railroad were repaired. Other smaller buildings near the stack were also left in place. The Magma Smelter was in operation for 47 years, 1924 to 1971. The stack and the buildings clustered at its base would stand mostly unused for another 47 years. In 2018, Resolution Copper determined that what remained of the smelter could not be preserved, despite earlier hopes that the old buildings could be refurbished for some other use. It all had to come down, including the towering stack. The buildings left standing near the base of the stack were taken down one by one in the fall of 2018. The stack was the last structure to go. Its unusual height required explosives for its demolition, which took place with a large crowd watching on November the 10th, 2018.
The smelter, it fell silent long before I came to town. Around 71 or so they say. It stood tall in the distance, a reminder of the past, a connection to another day. This town was built on mining, hard rock underground, not the kind just anyone can do. Men came from far away to work beneath the earth, and here they would raise their families too. Times were a little different, more black and white. Folks know what needed to be done. Families, they were everything, that was understood. As mothers raised their daughters, fathers raised their sons. and the sons would become fathers, and the daughters become mothers too. Their stories shall be remembered, passed on by those who knew. Now the stack has come down, that thought saddens me, but there was nothing that we could do. They say it just fell victim to its old age. I guess that is probably true. Some images we carry with us, we hold in our minds, we hope that we never forget. Those images carry memories that live in our hearts of times that we'll never regret. And the sons become the fathers, and the daughters become mothers too. Their stories shall be remembered, passed on by people like you. Our town has this history, this connection to the past, and it must be told that we stand on the shoulders of those before us, so the young may understand the old. And the stack and the smelter shall live in our memories, photographs and videos too, as we tell all the stories of those before us. We will remember you. And the sons now are fathers, and the daughters mothers too. Their stories will live forever. We will remember you. Superior will remember